Okay, so a review of yesterday. Today's super short. The domain on this one, domains go like this. And does this go forever in both directions? No, it stops right there. And in fact, I tried to make a big deal about it. Did not touch zero. So we're going to say that it goes from negative infinity up until zero, but then you say a parenthesis around the zero. Whereas if it had touched the zero, you would have made a bracket on it. Now, how about the range? The range, that's this way. That's like this. How far does it go on the low end? Negative infinity. How about the high end? Infinity. There we go. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Cool. Now, here's a much tougher one. Empty spot. That's at 6 comma negative 3. You need to know that, whether or not you realize it. You would need to know that. Let's say that's at 3 comma 4. And left, you will have to know that too. So that's going to be at negative 3, negative 1. You should be able to tell me that it's a function because it passes a vertical line test. But what's the domain? What's the range? So weekends are my time to catch up on late work, so I will do that. And I'm not assigning you anything new today. You can just enjoy a night off. If you do have anything missing, though, the window is rapidly closing where you could turn it in because this unit is done. The first unit, sorry, is done. We are already in the second unit, and the retake window for first unit is closing middle of next week. I would still take a Thursday retake, but then that's it, which means you can no longer turn in homework from the first unit. I actually was in favor of allowing homework to be turned in for longer than this, but I got outvoted. And in the end, we have teams of teachers that teach this class, and we want to be the same, not in every way, but in major ways. Like if I take late work forever and the other person is saying, no, you can't do it over like 2 weeks old or whatever, then we have to, like, to make it fair, try to make an agreement. So I get the pros and cons to both. So in the end, you can turn in your first unit's late work until Thursday of next week. Yes?
What's the take deadline for the top 20?
Top 20, that I can have be forever, because they do the same. That's not. Forever is a big word.
End of first quarter.
End of first quarter, yes. So that one is the one that I know a lot of people have got like a not super awesome score on. It isn't hurting you as bad as a normal test, but it is in the summative. So I would retake that on some morning. All right, here we go. Domain of this thing is from left to right. How far left does it go? Well, that's negative 3 to the left, and it's an empty spot there, so I'm putting a parenthesis. To how far does it go on this direction? It stops right there, which is how far to the right? 6. And does it touch there? Bracket. Then the range is how low does it go in this direction? And that's a low number. It's a y. It's negative 3, which would be confusing because you already had a negative 3, but it's a different negative 3. And then how high does it go in this direction? And that's a 4. And I got to see whether it touches. It touches both on that one. So bracket, bracket. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, cool. You get domain and range. What's the other thing I taught you? Well, vertical line test is one way to tell, but what if you just have a couple points? 2 comma 3, 3 comma 3, and 2 comma 7. Function or not? Is it because of these? Yes or no? No, it's not because of those. What's it because of? The 2's. These 2's should have had the same output as each other. Okay? So that is not a function. This and this were fine. And how can you tell? If you're like, oh, I don't get that thing, well, graph them quick. Because if you go over 2 and up 3, and you go over 3 and up 3, you'll see that will pass the vertical line test. Those 2 points are not causing a problem. Okay. All right, then there was a third way. If you look at an equation, I can tell right off the bat that this one will not be a function. Can you tell me why? And don't say because there's a y squared. That would be a wrong answer. It has something to do with that, but why is this not a function? Yes?
It has multiple answers.
Yes, there's more than one y answer. Y equals x minus 5 is, square root of x minus 5 is one of your answers. But when you square root both sides, this comes out to an absolute value of y, so it's got a second answer. Y is equal to the opposite of the square root of x minus 5. Side note, just because this happens to a lot of kids, and I get why they think it works, a lot of kids think that that answer is x minus 4. Or some kids think, oh, you can simplify it, see, because I know the square root of x squared, it's x. And I know the square root of 4, and it's 2. So why isn't the answer x plus 2? Because x plus 2 times x plus 2 doesn't make x squared minus 4. Know what I mean? And why isn't it x minus 2? Well, because x minus 2 times x minus 2 isn't x squared minus 4. It's x squared plus 4. And more stuff, too. Anyway, so moral of the story, don't try to simplify square roots like this because you think, oh, I know that they're both a squared, so I'll just take the square roots of them. That does not work. I could show you another reason why, but it won't take very long. Square root of 36 plus 4. Would you agree that's the same as the square root of 40? So it's not 6 plus 2 is 8. By that logic before that you could, take the square roots of them separately, then the answer should have been 6 plus 2 is 8. The answer should be 8. Is the square root of 40 actually 8? No, that does not work. Okay, so you can't take these separately as square roots. That does not work. Okay. There was one other thing, and that was if I said f of x is 3x squared minus 2. That's a simple one, but we don't have much time, and I still want to hand your test back today. I'd like you to just find me f of c plus 1 minus f of c. Hint, ignore this to start with. Just ignore the f of c at the end. Just act like that's not there. So you stick c plus 1 in your function. Then bring in minus f of c. F of c is actually really easy. Just stick c in the function. C plus 1 isn't that bad, but when you put the C plus 1 in, it gets kind of complicated to swear it. I told you this is the part of the test that will be like the careful test. There will be a lot of kids that get a low score on test 2, the chapter 2 test. Why? Because they aren't good at grinding out algebra with negatives, and I try to get you better at that with the top 20. But I get it, it's complicated. But if you know something's tricky, you should be able to rise to the occasion. 3x squared minus 2, and then you drop in the c plus 1. And then this part, minus f of c, you need a parentheses around this. And I bet a lot of people would have forgot that. And then that means you wouldn't have distributed the negative right. 3c squared minus 2. And I'll leave that up there. Try to understand what just happened there. Now, while we finish this problem, just to make it a little more efficient so we aren't sitting there as long, I am going to call off names, and you're going to come up and get your test back so that you have a little time to look at them. A thought, some kids would say 85%, that's a B, that's good enough. And I respect that. If that is good enough for you, that's cool. But then don't later at the end of the semester say, I really wanted a straight A, and that one B is holding me back. Yeah, it could happen. Unless, just to clarify, if we have 9 tests and 8 of them are A's and 1's a B, you'll get an A average. But that's not as likely as you have 1 B now, 2 A's, and then another B later. What does that average to? It's actually right between a B plus and an A minus. It's like right in between a B plus and an A minus. You got 2 A's though. Well, If you had had 3 A's because you retook this test, then that 1B at the end might still end up averaging an A. But if you have 2 B's and 2 A's, oh, it's not even close. It's going to be lower than an A minus average. So all I'm trying to say is if you have a B, you might want to think about retaking it. And people that have a C already probably have started their corrections. But if you have a B, something to think about. I'm not suggesting that that's, you know, like I feel bad for the people who are like, but you're pushing the kids too hard. I'm just saying if you're good with a B for the semester, then cool. But if your grade has to be an A at the end of the semester, well, then you're already starting out where you have to have like 3 A's now in a row to average an A. You started with a B. So you could consider doing a retake. All right, let me go a little further on this thing before I start handing these back. This was not C squared plus 1 squared. It's 3 and then C plus 1 and then another C plus 1 and then minus 2. So there's 4 parts to this. And it ends up being 3. I'm multiplying it in now all at once, which is kind of complicated. Maybe that's too complicated. On the video, I better show everybody. C squared plus 1C plus 1C, which makes 2C, plus 1. That's this part. Then I'm going to times it all by 3. So I get 3C squared plus 6C plus 3. Bring down the negative 2. And then bring down all this stuff, which is minus 3C squared. And again, if you didn't have the parentheses, you would have made that a minus 2, but it's actually a plus 2. And you're going to notice, this happened last time we did this, things cancel in this type of problem. The minus 2 and the plus 2 cancel. The 3C squared and the minus 3C squared, they cancel. So what are you left with? Just 6C plus 3. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Cool, you passed the careful test. All right, so a little review. And now I'm going to hand back the tests, and there's no new homework. But should you do the late homework from first chapter? Yes, you should, because I can still take it until the retakes are done. That's Thursday. Okay? All right, that's all I got for you for today.